So as promised, I wanted to dive into a training on boundaries for you all today. I did a post last week. I got an overwhelming response that yes, you want to hear about how to set boundaries without sounding like a jerk. Now, I'm going to be focusing on how to set boundaries at work without sounding like a jerk because I work with a lot of busy, high-achieving professionals that are on the verge of burnout, feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And this is a big skill that they are working on that makes a really huge difference for them in terms of their confidence and creating more balance in their lives. So first of all, why do people not set boundaries? Actually, let's back up. What is a boundary? Boundary is something that helps separate you from another person. And there are different types of boundaries. There are mental boundaries, there are physical boundaries, right? Like if you don't want to be touched in a certain way, that's a physical boundary. There's material boundaries, that's like someone taking your stuff without asking you about it. And there are time and energy boundaries. And this is where people get tied up a lot in the workplace because they feel really torn between proving themselves, making a good impression, seeming like a team player, and also afraid to rub people the wrong way. So going back to that original question, why do people not set boundaries, women in particular? Well, many women are conditioned and socialized to what is the word I'm looking for here? To appease other people. They're the caretakers. They're the people pleasers. They're the ones that are trying to keep everybody happy. And there's a big false misconception that by playing that role, you're actually helping yourself get ahead in your career and making everyone's lives better, when in fact, it's actually stretching you too thin, taking away your best energy from the things that you were best suited for, that you were hired for, and you end up not being able to be at your best at any of them. And any of you that have been in that overwhelmed, burnt out kind of place knows that no matter how hard you're trying, when you're spread too thin, it's really hard to give your 100% best to all of those things. Not to mention that it actually gets in the way of you having a personal life or being able to be present with your family and your loved ones, which the clients that I work with are, that's one of the biggest things that is really bothering them. It's like, I want to do good in my career, but I want to have a personal life too. I want to spend time with my partner or find a partner. I want to be able to be present with my kids and read them a bedtime story and enjoy it and not be thinking about all the things that are still left on my to-do list, right? And so boundaries are a really beautiful way that a lot of people think that they don't have as much leverage as they actually do. So I'll be sharing with you some strategies today that you can take into your day starting tonight, tomorrow, whenever you go back to work, whenever you see this, so that you can actually start creating more balance for yourself. And I promise you, it might feel really scary and uncomfortable at first, but trust me, it is so worth it. Every single client that I've worked with this on has felt such a sense of relief, such a sense of confidence. They've been promoted only months after they started implementing boundaries because they were actually doing a better job at their role and creating wins for the whole team. So stick with me and know that boundary might feel uncomfortable, especially if you have never been role modeled this and you're not used to speaking up for what you need or what you want. And it's so, so, so worth it. So with that said, the first step is really for boundaries is defining what your boundaries at work actually are for you. So bare bones minimum is like, what is your role? What is your job description? What is your responsibility? And what are your top priorities? What were you hired to do? What do you do best? So bare bones minimum, that's what your focus should be on. That should be your priority, and anything else is a bonus. And then you get to decide whether or not you want to engage in it. So I'll give you some examples. Actually, let me get a sip of water first. Thank you. So much better. So there might be some situations that are beyond your job description that might really be of interest to you and may be beneficial to you. Perhaps there is a favor that you want to do for someone because you're really looking to build a relationship with them because you think it will be strategic and helpful in your career. You feel like there's something you can learn from them, or depending on what your long-term goals are, you feel like they might be able to help you in some way, right? The law of reciprocity is that typically when you help someone else out, they feel uncomfortable if they're not doing something else to scratch your back in return. That's a human psychology factor, and definitely can use that to your advantage. Another reason you might choose to extend beyond your traditional job responsibilities is if you feel like there's a project you're just dying to get your hands on, like it would be really exciting and fulfilling for you. It's maybe an edge, something that you're wanting to learn and grow and expand in. Depending on your long-term career goals, it might be setting you up strategically for that next job position, whether it's within the same company or you're moving on to another company. So those are just a couple of examples of like where you get to use your best judgment of what you think, you want to say yes to and step into. But there may be many situations where you're being asked to do something and, well, if you're like many women, you might just automatically say yes and commit to it before you even had a chance to blink. Or I used to be that person. But often there are things that come up that we feel like we just feel so uncomfortable saying no that we just go along with it. Even if we know deep down it's going to cost us in some way, whether that means it's going to mean we are working after hours, it means that we're missing our kids' baseball game, it means that, we're having to work late on our project because we're helping someone else with their thing now. So these are the things that are really sneaky, and when you get in the habit of doing this, it might seem fine at first, but then becomes really, really detrimental, not just to your work performance, but also to your long-term growth potential in your company, because it actually affects your effectiveness at the job and what you were hired to do. So an example is someone might ask you for help on a project, and if you know that it's not going to be right for you, that you're already stretched thin, that you have another priority, you need to know how to respond to that, right? Without sounding like a jerk, without seeming like you're just putting someone out. So let's say, for example, someone's asking you, like you're a whiz at Google Slides, but they're asking you to do something in Google Sheets. I'm just coming up with an example here. So let's say they're asking you for that, and it's going to take you a lot more time to do it. It's not really your wheelhouse, and you don't really want to do it. So one strategy you might say is like, hey, that sounds like a really great, important thing to work on. To be perfectly honest, like that's actually not my wheelhouse, but you know what? Brad is super awesome with slides and he might be able to help you get there. Maybe you could ask him. And it's really important to phrase it that way, but you've done a couple of really amazing things. One, you've acknowledged the importance of the project, like you're not leaving them hanging. You've actually come up with an alternative solution for them and framing it in a way that is more beneficial to them, especially if you're like, hey, like I'm guessing you probably would rather have this done quickly, and I'm not so great at that. It actually will probably take me longer. Brad is super, is awesome at that. Now we are giving Brad an opportunity to shine where Brad is best at, but you're not also like implicating him either. Like he's not obligated, but you've still been helpful to the other person, not just leaving them out to dry. So that's one example that you can start implementing when someone asks you for help with a project. Now, say your boss comes up to you and is like, hey, I need this on my table by Friday, and it's Wednesday, and you already have a list this long of other things that you have to do. So this is what trips a lot of people up because they feel like they're afraid to say no. They're afraid to perhaps look like they are weak in some way or they can't handle the workload, especially people that are like newer in the workforce. Like it just feels like there's a fear of saying no or giving any kind of pushback. And it's unfortunate because it actually costs them down the road in their employment and their long-term success. So what you want to do in this situation, I have two phrases that are really helpful when it comes to this. One is to say, can I have a sec to look over my schedule and get back to you on that? The other one, that just buys you some time to kind of collect your thoughts and figure out like what your game plan is. The other option is to say, hey, I have this, and this going on. Which one of those would you like me to bump so that I can prioritize this new thing and get it to on your desk on Friday? I'd be so happy to do that for you. Can you help me prioritize? Where do I shift my attention? Or presenting a solution. If it's like, they're like, no, we need all of those things by Friday, like none of those can bump. Be like, okay, well, realistically, this is where I'm at on this project. If you want to have all of that done by Friday, could I have Sue come and help me with this one piece? And so you're being solution oriented. That's how you're not sounding like a jerk. You're not saying no. You're like, you always want to think about like what's in it for them. Like if their bottom line is like meeting a deadline or making a sale, then how do you position yourself as like, hey, I'm on your team. I have the same goal as you do. And here's what I have the bandwidth for. And this is how you actually get in the habit of protecting those time and energy boundaries that I was talking about in the beginning of this training. So I know this is just a little brief intro into boundaries and some of the ways that they show up, especially in the workplace. If you're wanting to dive deeper into this and build more confidence in this area, as well as every area of your life, I am doing a training next Thursday, October 7th. It's going to be happening at 6 p.m. Pacific time. How to elevate your professional confidence. And believe it or not, your confidence is intrinsically tied to your ability to set boundaries. Because when you don't feel confident in your ability to say no, or your abilities to be valued as an employee without overextending yourself, they're very closely linked. So in the training, next week, I'll be talking all about the mindset, thoughts, and beliefs that get in the way and sneakily cause self-sabotage, often happening beneath the surface, like below your awareness. So we'll be bringing some of that into light so you can actually see the shifts that you need to make in order to feel more confident and be able to present yourself in a more confident manner. Because a lot of the times people externally are responding to you from what you're projecting from the inside. So if you're feeling insecure and lacking confidence, then they're going to feel that too. The other things that we'll be touching on in this training is boundaries and how to be a more effective and masterful communicator, to position yourself as a leader, as an authority, as a key player and a team player without sacrificing your personal life or compromising who you are, so that you're really shining in your strengths. And we'll be covering the different types of communication styles. We'll be talking about assertive communication versus aggressive communication and passive communication. So people usually fall on one of two sides. Usually they're more passive and don't speak up for their needs or do it in a very kind of meek or indirect way. Then there are some people that are hyper direct and it comes off as aggressive even if they don't mean to. So I'll be sharing some frameworks and phrases and reframes so that you can leave that training knowing how you can speak in a way that's more effective for getting what you want, getting your needs met, and reaching your goals. We'll also be diving into what was the other thing I wanted to mention about this training? It's going to be really packed. It's going to be an hour and 15 minutes, but we're going to be covering a lot in that. Oh yes, I wanted to talk about just like how to speak in a more confident manner. So we'll give you some reframes so you can see the difference between like language in like an email or verbal communication that doesn't sound so confident or assertive or as an authority, and stuff that seems very confident and competent and positions you as a leader, as someone that can be trusted, so that you can really shine in the workplace. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I'm excited for this training next week. If you want to attend, the early bird tickets are $7. You can sign up. The link I'll put to register below. Or if you see this and you're not seeing how to register, you can send me a message. I'm happy to send you the details. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this training and what you're going to start implementing starting today.